There's an event in Tuscaloosa next week that'll bring together people of different walks of life who have a shared history. It's an often overlooked history that people across the state of Alabama have in common, a history so deep, so painful, and in some cases shameful that no one wants to talk about it. They don't know how. And that's what this event in Tuscaloosa is all about. It could be as simple as planting a seed, telling this complicated story that has ties to the rich soil of Alabama. Whether it's the red clay to the north or the fertile earth of the Black Belt. Row after row, these carefully collected jars of soil at the Equal Justice Initiative are telling the story of lynching in America, lynching in Alabama. The names, the dates, the lingering questions. Victims who died horrific deaths because of their skin color.
The landscape is silent about this era where terrorism and violence and abuse characterized life in this country.
I sat down with Brian Stevenson, who's the director of the Equal Justice Initiative. He told me in places like South Africa and Germany, where human atrocities happened, people talk about it.
If you go to Berlin, you can't go 100 meters without seeing a marker or a stone or a monument that's been placed next to the home of a Jewish family that was abducted during the Holocaust. The Germans want you to go to the Holocaust Memorial and reflect soberly on that history.
That's why he and his team are creating similar places for sober reflection here in the U.S. as part of EJI's Community Remembrance Project.
We are blessed city of Brighton.
It's where they place a marker, like this one in Brighton, acknowledging lynching in America, each telling the story of individual victims caught up in the horrific aftermath of slavery.
We did something awful. It was a mass atrocity, and we have not acknowledged it, and we haven't addressed it. It then led to this era of terrorism, where black people were pulled out of their homes and burned alive and hung and beaten and mutilated in communities all across this state.
Do the markers then serve as a way of sparking the conversation?
I think we do have to spark the conversation with something more visual, something more accessible for people.
Beginning with soil from the places we call home in Alabama, places where many of the atrocities happened. Leeds, Brighton, Birmingham, and Tuscaloosa, where University of Alabama students in Dr. John Giggy's class have taken the names from the jars at EJI and gone a step further in addressing lynching in Tuscaloosa County.
Try to spend a semester tracking down as much information as we can, try to reconstruct the lives of these 8 individuals who were lynched in the late 19th and early 20th centuries.
In the process of the research, something else happened for the students working on this project.
It just kind of made me see a real case of lynchings being used to communicate a message of fear into the communities.
During our visit to EJI, we saw students learning about the criminal justice system and racial inequality, and a day where lynching was part of that equation.
I think that we have to say lynching was a horrific thing, was a terrible thing, what our communities did, and everybody's complicit.
So they teach not only the how and where of lynchings in America, but the who was involved as well.
They weren't conducted by the Klan. It wasn't the extremists. These lynchings were perpetrated by teachers and preachers and farmers.
Talking about the mistakes of the past so as not to repeat them, creating what Stevenson calls a new identity rooted in racial reconciliation, healing, and restoration.
I like healing, I like reconciliation, I like restoration, but the first part of that phrase is truth. There's going to be truth and reconciliation, truth and healing, truth and restoration.
Normally, you plant a seed in the soil to yield a harvest. But in this case, where the expected result is healing, EJI is using the soil in these jars to plant a seed of truth in every community in America, including Alabama, where they have documented a lynching. And in the end, they too expect a harvest of healing. In 2018, EJI plans to open a national memorial to victims of lynching in Montgomery, where it will contain the names of the more than 4,000 lynching victims they have documented. 8 of those victims will be remembered Monday at 4:45 in front of the old Tuscaloosa County Jail, where they will place a marker that evening. A community remembrance service will follow at the First African Baptist Church.